All right, hello viewers, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you are watching. We are here live and direct at DCTv Productions. We have in our midst a priest of the Catholic Diocese of Okolie. He studied philosophy and theology. He has been a priest for the past years. He has been into so many things in the media world. And today he is here with us to talk about catechesis, including Okolie. We have in our midst in the person of Reverend Father. It has been a while, and today we wish to talk about some issues about catechesis. And we know that for some time you have been writing on catechesis, so we wish that you address some issues for us so that our viewers will also learn from your reservoir of knowledge. Who should be a godfather, a sponsor, according to the canon law?
Okay, thank you very much, Father. Actually, like you said at the beginning, uh, that I've been into catechesis, yes. So I'm thinking that it is also good that we briefly tell our
Okay.
viewers what catechesis is all about.
Okay.
Because, a number of persons may have been hearing about catechesis, but they may not actually know what is catechesis. Something that catechesis is all about, the catechism of preparation before
Communion.
That's why sometimes when we talk about catechism, some people will liken it to catechism and they then limit it to something for children.
Okay. So
But
catechesis is for everybody.
catechism is for everybody. Actually, Pope John Paul II now sent Pope John Paul II. He said that nobody in the Church of Jesus Christ should be exonerated from catechesis.
Okay.
Nobody. Both ministers and even the faithful, everybody. Okay, so now catechesis has to do with education in the faith, which involves the teaching of Christian doctrine with a goal of initiating the faithful into the fullness of the Christian life. Catechesis is all about instructing the people on the content of the faith, because it's only when you know the meaning of something that you begin to value what it's all about. So if you don't know the meaning, you may not value it. So a number of persons who go to church, who attend masses, who receive the sacrament, they may not know what it's all about. And that's why very often you see people, attending mechanically, because they don't have the proper preparation, proper ongoing education in the faith. So it's a very necessary part of our faith, catechesis. Okay.
So the question here now is who should be a godfather, according to canon law, because we have issues concerning who should be a godfather.
Yes. So now the canon is very clear on that. Canon 872, maintains that a newly baptized person should be assigned a godparent.
Okay.
Canon also calls that sponsor.
Yes.
Now, Canon 874 meticulously outlined the duties of this sponsor or this godparent.
Okay.
Now, one, the person has to be has not to be the parent of the newly baptized.
Okay.
And then the person also has not to be the sibling of the newly baptized. The person has to be a Catholic suited for the work, to fulfilling the work. And then the person has not to be less than 16 years,
Okay.
unless there is an exception from the Daesan bishop. Okay. Then again, the person has to be a Catholic confirmed. Like you said, there is a problem with that. Yes, there is a problem because sometimes some people will begin to ask you, can an Anglican be my godparent?
Yes,
Or
yes.
can an Anglican be my sponsor? Something
Or
like
can
that.
somebody who attends a different church?
Exactly. So the canon, canon 874 says that the person has to be a Catholic.
Okay.
Not only a Catholic, but also confirmed. And has also received the Holy Eucharist. Okay?
That means communion,
Communion, yes,
confirmation.
exactly. And then the person has to be one who lives out the Christian faith, the Catholic faith. Not just, in our own situation. Some people want to get people, maybe those who are rich,
Okay.
irrespective of whether this
Influence.
person is, faithful, whether this person, yes. But the canon says that the person has to be one who is living out the faith, because the person will be a model to this person. And then the person should not be under any canonical penalty, not somebody who is excommunicated from the Catholic Church, from the church, And then the person also, like I said earlier, will not be the father or the mother of the newly baptized. Yeah, these are some of the qualities of the godparent or the sponsor.
Conditions
the
of being a
conditions,
godparent.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
So our number 2 question today, in line with St. Francis Xavier missionary experience, has there been any change regarding to catechetical preparations of candidates for reception of the sacraments?
Yeah, surely. Personally, I was fascinated the first time I read about the commitment of St. Francis Xavier. You see that in the Office of Readings of the Memorial of St. Francis Xavier, that is December 3rd of December. Yeah. So in that Office of Readings, the second read of the Office of Readings, is a letter that he wrote to Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Jesuits, the Society of Jesus. So there he was talking about how he was instructing the young people that he couldn't even make out time to eat.
Okay.
That they will gather, wishing that he will instruct them, and then he will begin to instruct them from the sign of the cross. He instructed them on Hail Mary, Our Father, these basics.
Okay.
So now, in this missionary experience of Francis Xavier, I can only see commitment, pastoral zeal, thoroughness, which these are qualities that are lacking in the present day preparation for the reception of the sacraments. You see a situation where the pastor, when I talk about the pastor, I mean maybe the parish priest now or the priest in charge, leaving it in the hand of one or two, either lay faithful or so, or the catechist, and at the end of the day, what we see is haphazard preparation that gives birth to half-baked Catholics, and this continues the problem that we face in the church, because these half-baked Catholics will eventually become in charge, become CWO president, CMO president. We are not, they don't have the foundation of the faith.
So are you trying to say that the apostolic work, 6 weeks, seminarians teaching catechism, which I know that they do often, and this is one of the assignments of seminarians, going on apostolic work, and children come out because seminarian is around.
Yes.
Are you trying to say that the 6 weeks is not enough? Okay. Considering St. Francis Xavier, his experience, and now what we are experiencing today, are you trying to say that the 6 weeks is not enough?
Surely, the 6 weeks apostolic work cannot really be said to be enough. Okay. The reasons being that, one, at least I was going on apostolic work before eventually I became a priest. Now, normally, look at what happens within the 6 weeks. The seminarians, that is where these 6 weeks is taken for the preparation of the candidates. Now, look at what happens. When the seminarians arrive, the first probably the first week will be the week of trying to invite the candidates to come for catechism.
Okay.
You know, it takes time, you know, people will be coming and not coming. Yes, 1 week is over. So now, by the second week, the seminarian will be trying to, you know, instruct the children. The children are trying to get adapted to the new learning process. Okay. They have not been into this. You know, learning in the classroom is quite different from the catechetical preparation, the catechism. So they are now trying to learn, you know, who made you or that, stuff like that. Second week is over. Then leaving, let's say 4 weeks. Within that 4 weeks, the last week is for the seminarians sent forth preparation going. So at the end of this, see that we have barely 3 weeks.
3 weeks, okay.
You know, and these 3 weeks cannot possibly take care of the preparation for the reception of the sacrament, the creed, the sacraments, the prayer. You know, these are parts of the things that make up the preparation for the candidate.
You know, there are children even within these 3 weeks who can comfortably recite this catechism,
yes.
Like you said. But now, are you against the process of the teaching, or are we supposed to change the method? Because I've heard from some dioceses that they go for like 3 years classes. Maybe for instance, like Lagos State, I don't know, but they go for like, you see that they are going for catechism first year, second year, and they are hoping to receive communion after 3 years. Now, in our own setting, are you against the process? You know, like reputation. You know, they can easily cram it, and at the end of the day, once the seminarian goes, I think that some of them, after a week or so, if you call them back to ask them some of those questions, they will no longer remember.
Exactly.
They will say that they have received communion.
Exactly.
So, what other steps can we take in order to make sure that even after the seminarian is done with his work, even after the receiving of communion, you said catechism is ongoing. So, what is your take so that
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Father. It's a very serious and complex issue. Now, apart from the 6 weeks, a better option should be that catechesis, catechism preparation, catechism classes should be ongoing in every parish. So the seminarians coming on apostolic work, they are coming to do the final touches. You know, so that the candidates will now receive. Not waiting until when the seminarians arrive. Personally, I'm even of the view, considering what we were talking about, memorizing and then not understand. I'm even of the view that not even everybody should be allowed to teach, because according to Pope St. John Paul II in the famous apostolic exhortation, Catechesi Tradende, you know, he was talking about the process of this catechism. Yes, the rote memorization, which is very widespread, yes, is also good, but he also emphasized the need to make the children understand what they are memorizing. You know, because some people were like, let us, you know, dismiss this idea of rote memorization. But he was saying no, because there are some parts of this catechesis that need to be memorized. For example, the creed, I believe, or the Gloria. You know, some responses at Mass need to be memorized. They need to be memorized. Yes, you need to memorize them. So there are some parts of this catechesis that need to be memorized. There are also some parts that you need to explain so that the person may not even necessarily memorize that. So you need to combine the two, both memorization, the rote memorization, and then explanation. And that is the work of the person instructing. The person instructing the candidates, you not only allow the children to memorize, but you also explain what they are memorizing. And that will leave that knowledge with them even after the reception of the sacrament. But if you just emphasize on rote memorization, then after the reception of the sacrament, they are bound to forget everything.
So if I understand you very well, what you're trying to say is that this teaching should have started before the
earlier.
So
Before
once
the
they come
apostolic
around during the apostolic work, it's like trying to round up.
exactly.
But are you suggesting any particular months or maybe year,
Okay.
like I suggested about some dioceses doing? So
Yes.
are you suggesting about maybe a year or months before? Because we know that seminars often come around July,
Yeah.
something like that. So are you suggesting maybe a particular year, maybe a particular months before, preparation to, okay, we already know that seminarians are coming in July, first week of July. So maybe are they supposed to start maybe earlier, maybe like December or something like that? So
Yeah.
what's your take on that?
Okay. Now, for example, on nature where I was for leave, they say that they are doing it just. I mean, I don't know if it is all of the parishes in Onitsha,
Okay.
but the particular place that I was for my annual leave,
Okay.
Extension and Preparation, they said that the catechism class is just ongoing.
Okay.
And they receive the sacrament, according to maybe after some months, maybe at major feasts, a major celebration, like during the Assumption, they received First Holy Communion, so that as the catechism class is ongoing, the candidates are examined from time to time after like some months. And then if they are prepared, they are ready, then they receive. Others continue. It's just ongoing. Yeah.
Thank you for that. So we have another question here. When the universe will be renewed at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, what will be the qualification of its citizens?
Okay, thank you very much, Father. This question will presuppose either that I've been to heaven or you have been to heaven.
Okay.
And we are neither of us have been to heaven. Okay. So it's only Jesus Christ who came down from heaven, and he told us what would be the requirements and what would be the qualification for the candidates. And you see that in Matthew chapter 25 from verse 31 to 46, where he was talking about the qualification based on charity. I was hungry, you gave me food to eat. I was thirsty, you gave me water to drink, all that. So if we are able to live up to these demands of charity, of our neighbor, and of course, charity towards neighbor presupposes the love of God. Because it's only when you love God with all your heart and with all your mind that you now see that your neighbor as an image of God. Okay, so that you'll also extend that charity to him or her, which is very, very important.
Okay, thank you. The Immaculate Conception of the Blessed Virgin Mary is a feast we often celebrate on 8th December. In this solemnity, we celebrate the Blessed Virgin Mary not as a super being, but a humble creature in whom the grace of God triumphed exceedingly. What is your take on that?
Very, very correct. You are just very correct. The Blessed Virgin Mary was open to the grace of God.
Yeah.
And the grace of God achieved a lot in her. So the thing is that some of our separated brethren, if not all, I think they think that we see the Blessed Virgin Mary as God.
Okay, I think that is where the problem is.
Yes, but they are seeing that from afar. They have not come closer to see what we are doing or to understand what we are doing.
The injunction says we are honoring Mary.
Very good. Exactly. So the Blessed Virgin Mary, every Catholic understands that the Blessed Virgin Mary is a creature.
Okay.
But she opened up herself, and the grace of God triumphed in her. Okay. And we also made that very, very clear and concrete in the terminologies we use. For example, the Blessed Virgin Mary, the veneration we give to Blessed Virgin Mary is called hyperdulia.
Okay.
While the worship we give to God is called latria. So it's discovered that the church clearly distinguishes between these two. The Blessed Virgin Mary is not God. Yes. We understand that. The church understands that. So the veneration we give to her is called hyperdulia. The one we give, the worship we give to God is called latria. Then the ones we give to the saints is called dulia. So these are distinctions. Okay, but now another important thing that we really need to bring in so that our viewers will understand is that if, for example, a Catholic who understands this, of course, comes before the Blessed Virgin Mary, kneeling down, does not mean that he or she is worshiping the Blessed Virgin Mary. He or she is still honoring the Blessed Virgin Mary, reverencing the Blessed Virgin Mary, based on the distinction of hyperdulia. Whether he or she is standing, kneeling, sitting, lying down, is the same hyperdulia.
Sometimes our people, sometimes they are too religious. That sometimes there are things they do before they start to that gets a non-Catholic worried, and the non-Catholic will be like, "What is this person doing?" But I think that it's like more focusing. It's like more having a connection, because you are looking at the Blessed Virgin Mary. You are like focusing more your attention to talk to her, and it's not as if you are praying to the statue itself. You are like using the image to have a connection.
Exactly. Yes.
So now, what if in the case where people find it difficult to understand this? So what is your take on people like those who find it difficult to understand this dogma of the Immaculate Conception? So
now, you know that the content of our faith is not something that you can grasp all with reason.
Okay.
Pope St. John Paul II in his encyclical Fides et Ratio, he made it very clear that we need the two wings of reason and faith in order to contemplate the mysteries. So the problem is when somebody is struggling to understand the Immaculate Conception all with reason alone.
Okay.
Reason can get to a point and stop. Okay. You need the wing of faith to continue. So it's very important. It's very, very important. Yes, faith is very, very important in that regard.
Okay, thank you.
And remember what faith is all about: a supernatural gift of God, which enables us to believe without doubting whatever God has revealed. Faith, hope, and charity, they are called theological virtues. Why? They are called theological virtues according to Jesus of the Church because they are infused in our soul by God Himself. They are infused by God Himself. So when we earnestly ask for these theological verses, pray for them, earnestly desire them, God will give it to us freely. It's a free gift of God. Remember in the Bible, the apostles prayed, "Lord, increase our faith." So we need this faith in order to go beyond where the reason stop, in contemplating these mysteries, these dogmas. Yeah, very, very important.
All right, thank you, Father. The year of Saint Joseph and the feast of the Holy Family was a day of plenary indulgence. What are the conditions? And is this indulgence obtained just only within this celebration, or are there other days of this indulgence? So, what's your take on that?
Yeah, that when it comes to indulgence, is left within the dicastery known as the Apostolic Penitentiary. The Apostolic Penitentiary, they give out the modalities, of course, with the approval of the Pope, the Holy Father. The conditions for indulgence in the church, and sometimes it comes with some celebrations. Like you pointed out, during the year of Saint Joseph, we had that opportunity to gain plenary indulgence, and normally, when you talk about indulgence, and getting of indulgence, we have the basic conditions. Okay. For example, the basic conditions are: one, sacramental confession, and then detachment from mortal sin, from sin. Then
you mentioned the sin so that our audience will understand what we're talking about.
Detachment from sin, just that. Going to confession when we have opportunity of gaining indulgence, the basic condition, irrespective of maybe the feast or whatever that has prompted that, detachment from sin, going to sacramental confession, going to mass and receiving communion, then praying for the intention of prophecies. Recently, let me also use this opportunity to inform our viewer. Recently, I wrote something on the internet. Somebody asked me, I wrote about praying for the Pope's intention, and the person said, "How would I know Pope's intention?" I told the person, actually, every month, the Holy Father releases his prayer intention for the month. If you check it on the internet, you will always see it. At the beginning of every month, or even before that, the Holy Spirit releases, look at the Pope's intention for this month. But even if you know it or you don't know it, once you pray for the Pope's intention, it takes care of that. Okay, normally, one Our Father, one Hail Mary, and one Glory Be. I mean, two for this in the indulgence. Now, the apostolic penitentiary can now add other conditions. For example, during the time of year of Saint Joseph, the apostolic penitentiary added praying a recognized prayer of Saint Joseph. In addition to these basic conditions, praying a prayer of Saint Joseph, a recognized official praying of prayer of Saint Joseph. Then on July 23rd, the year for the elderly, the celebration of the elderly, the elderly, the World Day for the elderly. Yes, so the one that they added to these basic conditions was visitation to any elderly person, or your grandparents, or or either reaching out to them. No, of course, living now. Living, or reaching out to them either through either physically or virtually. Yes, virtually. So this one was a condition added to the basic condition for the other indulgence. Then there are also other times when you gain indulgence. For example, November. Every November, from 1st of November to the last month, to the last day of November. Normally, it used to be from 1st of November to November 8th. If you pray for the dead, either going to the cemetery to pray for the dead, or
which often celebrate on 1st of November.
On 2nd of All Souls, yes. But the opportunity for gaining the indulgence span through that of from 1st day of November to the last day of November. It used to be from 1st day of November to the 8th of, from All Saints to the 8th of November. So you can also gain indulgence by praying your rosary. The rosary. The rosary. It's often. So the times and the conditions for gaining indulgence, from time to time, the apostolic penitentiary releases conditions and on how to gain indulgence.
So within this period, you can gain indulgence for whatever sin.
Okay, now I think it is very important that we even understand what is indulgence. It's very important. Now, indulgence is the removal of the temporal punishment due to sins already forgiven at the confessional. Now, what does it mean? I think if a number of Catholics, if we understand this very well, then it will help us understand that it's not all about maybe falling into sin and going to confession. Now, it doesn't end there. Now, when one sins and goes to confession, especially mortal sin. Now you have, when one sins, falls into mortal sin, there are two punishments awaiting the person. One is eternal punishment, and the other one is temporal punishment. Eternal punishment is if this person dies in this mortal sin, this person is going to hellfire. Eternal punishment. Okay, so now if this person repents from the sin and goes to confession, the eternal punishment is removed. Together with the guilt of sin. And that's why when one goes to confession with his or her whole heart, he feels a relief.
And comes out fresh.
Exactly. So the guilt is removed, the eternal punishment. Now is remaining the temporal punishment. And this temporal punishment, is taken care of by this indulgence, that you gain it, from time to time, and then, like I said, from good works, charitable, yes, works of mercy, works of charity, and of other conditions that happen apostolic penitentiary from time to time helps us to, get to know. Okay. Yeah. So you see, these are the condition, and then what indulgence is all about. Indulgence does not take away sin.
Okay.
Some people think that indulgence takes away sins.
So maybe that person will now say, okay, I've sinned, I'm not going for conviction.
Exactly.
Let me say my rosary and my sins are forgiven.
Exactly. So that was why I told you at the beginning that we have basic conditions for getting that. One is going to confession and detachment from sin. Have you seen it? Going to confession and then detachment from sin,
Now, is there any connection between this, going for confession that is not enough with restitution? Is there any connection with that based on the indulgence you're talking about? Maybe like, it's not enough going to confession.
Yeah.
So you can still keep on saying your rosary to free yourself from the temporal punishments. Now, is there anything like restitution? Because somebody will come to confession and tell you something, and the person is still holding that thing he's confessing of. Now, sometimes you tell the person about restitution, you need to return back what you are holding in order for you to be free and for God to forgive you. Citing the man that said, I'm going to pay back what I have collected fourfold. Okay. Mm-hmm. So now, is there any connection in this indulgence with restitution?
The first condition, going to confession and detachment from sin.
Okay.
When we talk about detachment from sin, maybe I'll use a concrete example.
Okay.
Let's say somebody is a criminal, a thief, and this person has this habit of stealing, a kleptomaniac. Now, so you are going to confession, and you have already mapped out plans on how to steal somebody's thing. They say, let me just go to confession and then receive communion, gain indulgence. Then the next day I will steal. It can't work. Okay. So that is the detachment from sin. You have made up your mind. That is what is called perfect contrition. Okay. You have made perfect contrition to avoid this thing and what will lead you to it. That does not mean maybe as a human being that after you have made this strong, firm resolution, that maybe temptation cannot come. But basically you have made up your mind that you are not doing this. So it's also possible that after you have gone for confession and everything, maybe after a day you'll be tempted to fall into the same thing, but not with prior plans on how to continue with it. That is the subtle difference. That you are not planning to do this, but let me just go to confession and after I will do this. But I'm not longer doing this. I've made up my I'm not doing this, and then I've gone to confession, and then mistakenly,
that is to say that is not the right confession or right attitude to confession. Because you are going to confession and you already have in mind.
Yes, no, of course.
Committing another sin or the
same
sin.
Yes, if you have in mind and plans of committing the same sin and you are going to confession, then you are not properly disposed for the confession.
Okay.
Exactly. So, and then talking about restitution, returning what you have stolen is very, very important. Zacchaeus, like you pointed out, when Jesus Christ came to this, he said, salvation has come to this house. Okay. So he said, I'm returning fourfold whatever I've taken from people. So the Latin, it is said this saying that a thing continues to cry for its owner. You cannot take away somebody's food and you are keeping it in your custody and you are going to confession. You have to return what you are holding, give it to the owner. Then that is the true repentance, the true metanoia, that you took this but you have repented. Take it back to the owner, and then reconcile with God. You cannot be reconciling with God and you are keeping it, still using it. It doesn't work.
Okay, do you have any advice for our faithful or the faithfuls who take long to go for confession?
Very,
someone
very.
telling you for the past 4 years I've been too busy, or they may have forgotten how to go to confession. So what advice do you have for such people?
It's really a problem. I wrote something some time ago on the internet, How often should I go to confession?
Okay.
Saint Pio of Pietrelcina, all of us know about him, Padre Pio. Padre Pio. He recommended 5 ways of spiritual progress.
Okay.
Among which is this weekly confession. Can you imagine Padre Pio, that when he was alive, he was called a living saint, was going for confession on weekly basis. Weekly. Now what is the advantage of this frequent confession? We can call it frequent confession. The advantage is that it will help the faithful, the penitent, the faithful, to be sensitive to sin. To be sensitive to sin. Just like somebody who is, always, yes, somebody who, exactly. So trying to go for frequent confession will help the person to be sensitive to sin. But when you live, going for confession for a very long time, the person will become so used to sin that at a point, he or she may no longer be feeling, yes, exactly. And it's very dangerous. It's very, very dangerous. So the recommendations of the saints, spiritual writers, they talk about frequent confession. Is very, very important.
So for the sake of our viewers, those who sometimes give excuses that they have forgotten how to go to confession, can you give them a kind of remembrance or a kind of remind them again how to approach the priest for confession?
Yes.
How to introduce themselves and how to go straight to the point. I have this issue of encountering an elderly woman who will come to the confessional and she will be telling you stories. And after the story, she will ask you what her sin is in the story. And sometimes you will be like, okay, mommy, this is not a place for this. I think these are the things you do in the catechesis classes. But for here, you are meant to mention your sin. So there are people like that. So we need to direct our people so that they will understand that each time you want to go to confession, you have accepted your fault and you are going to confess. Not to tell the priest the story and ask the priest to tell you if you committed. That means you've not accepted your sin. So what do you have to take on that?
Yes, like you said, just imagine a situation whereby, somebody who was instructed before the reception of, let's say, Holy Communion, so many years ago. And this person is not in the habit of going for frequent confession. It's normal that after some time the person will forget how to go for confession. And that is why it's also encouraged, this ongoing catechesis. From time to time, pastors, priests, parish priests should also refresh the mind of the parishioners on how to do, how to go for confession in both in vernacular and in English, and of course in other languages. Those of other languages.
So can you start with the vernacular down to the
so when
English?
Okay. Let's use Igbo, of course, we are Igbos. I want to to Christian Gampuda. It is called confessional, where you go for confession. So we have the confessor, both the priest, and then we have the penitent, who only confession. So when I'm derite, Umar Karankode, say, Nna Biko Goziem. Omego iye deka. The last time when I go confession was like 1 week ago. Omego iye deka ofizo ka kemgbe ngara nkwupụta ikpeazụ. 1 month or so omego iye deka ofuoma kemgbe ngara nkwupụta ikpeazụ. According to yes. So those who we are not prepared very well for the reception of Holy Communion. Maybe a young person say, now here I'm cooked this kemgbe mmechere baptism. All you have to say it is the same thing on the because perhaps they were not properly instructed. They were not properly prepared. So, but the right thing is, that first confession this baptism. After which you have wisdom, them just trying to give a link between this confession and the last time we went for confession. so that the confessor will
One
know.
will know exactly where
If, for example, it has been a very long time, the confessor will advise you. Opposition is not healthy for you.
Like 1 year, 2 years,
yes,
3 years. Okay.
So it's just to put the confessor on the look at, because the confessor is there both as a confessor, as a spiritual guide, and all that.
Okay.
He's there for the sake of your soul, to guide you and direct you aright. Then after which the person goes
straight
into
to the point.
Confessing his or her sin. It's advised that the person confess both in number and in kind. For example, that onye asị ndị a bụ njọ m, ezuru m ohi ihe dịka ugboro 5 maọbụ ugboro 3 maọbụ ugboro 4, anụrụ m ọgụ ihe dịka ugboro 5 maọbụ ugboro 4 maọbụ all that, it will also help the confessor to know how frequent you are battling with this sin. All these, just like onye gara na hospital, ị bịa gwa the doctor, say na afọ na arụ gị. He can wonder how often, how long, so that yes, exactly. So these are I'm going to say nna ekwusigo emego mezi ebere n'ime obi maka njọ ndị a. And that's why before you go for confession, there are conditions for to make one is that first of all you have to the examination of conscience, then contrition, talk about confession, then satisfaction. Contrition, confession, and satisfaction. And before that, of course, you have to examine thoroughly, praying the Holy Spirit to enlighten your mind. Then you make contrition, perfect contrition, that you have rejected this sin that you have remembered, you have taken time to recall. I've rejected this, and then maybe go also. Then you go for confession, meeting the confessor, the priest. Then after getting confessed, then you listen to the priest again. The priest will now advise you what in the prayer, and then give you the penance that you have to fulfill. That's the last condition that we now. When you leave the confessional, you go and observe the penance he has given you, which will be either in form of prayer, also in form of works of charity. Then that is the completion of the.
There is a particular prayer that the penitent is meant to say.
Yes, of course.
Normally I have problems in that
exactly,
point.
And all catechism takes care of that at the initial preparation, which some people don't know, and if you miss it, then it's a very big problem. So, and that is omenki ime. You have to say it either in vernacular or so if, for example, the priest says omenki ime, and you don't know how to say it in Igbo, you say it in English. And it's very important that every communicant should know how to say omenki ime, because that, and then let me quickly,
out of contrition,
exactly. Let me quickly add, especially for confessors, who will come across this video. It's advisable, which I also do, because we can say now that a number of Catholics are losing the basic prayers of the church, which may also be part of poor preparation before the reception of the sacraments. Because it's supposed to be part of the preparation, the basic prayers of the church. Now, as a confessor, you are telling a penitent, the penance he or she will observe in form of prayer. Say this prayer, say this prayer. Ensure that this penitent knows how to say this prayer.
Those prayers.
And what I do is, if I give the penitent say this prayer, I will ask. I hope you know how to say this prayer. Sometimes, if you don't ask them, they will just go, because they don't know that this is a condition that will make their confession fruitful. Because they don't know that, you just tell them, they will just go without saying that.
Because somebody is checking whether
will check you whether you say it or not. They think that they have just escaped the priest. Without knowing that it's about a condition that is necessary for them to have a completion of what they have come for. So it's not like maybe a doctor who recommended some drugs to
and ask you to go and buy
and tell you to buy it, and then you go. Or even after giving you the drugs, you go and hide it as we are doing when we are kids. You go and throw it away. You continue to suffer the same illness.
Come back to
exactly. So one is good that the confessor also asks the penitent, as you are giving the prayer, I hope you know how to say this prayer. If the penitent says no, you can also give him or her another one that he or she can say. Okay. Instead of maybe the person going and not saying it. So it's very, very important. So it's very important the person says the prayer. Very, very important. Then another important thing is also the penitent should also be humble enough to tell the confessor, please, Father, I don't know how to say this prayer you asked me to say. Whereby maybe the confessor did not ask. The penitent should be able to say, I'm sorry, Father, I don't know how to say this prayer, please. Instead of just going and not saying
so that is to say that if they don't get that, their confession is not
complete. It's not complete now, because look at the contrition, confession, satisfaction.
Okay.
These are three conditions. Yes.
Okay. So, because I think I've encountered people, so maybe when you are doing confession in English, they will tell you, please, can I say it in English?
Yes, of course.
Go ahead, and some will tell you, okay, I can't say it in Igbo, I want to say it in English.
Sure, so any language.
God understands.
Yes, of course, any language.
So can you now say that prayer, the Omenkime prayer,
yes,
for those who don't know how to say it, and also the English version of it?
Yes. Omenkime prayer, Ochkunke. Emere me ebere si n'ime obi m pụta maka njọ. Akpọrọ m jazz maka na fa dị njọ. Gị bụ onye dị fere mma oke. Akwadogo m sie ike site na gracia gị. That is the Igbo version. You can always see that in prayer books, especially penny catechism in different languages. This Omenkime bere onokwana Igbo penny catechism. The English version on English penny catechism. I wanted to bring it as I was coming back, but maybe I didn't. So I'm sure it's also on the internet. Okay. You can always check it. The act of contrition. You can always see it.
And I think this prayer is the last thing a penitent says before leaving the confessional.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So once the penitent says this Omenkime, this act of contrition, after saying it, now the priest gives the absolution. And then the penitent goes. So after the confession, the penitent listens to the confessor, the priest. The priest now advises him or her, then gives imposes the penance, and then asks the penitent to now say the Omenkime, the act of contrition. After saying it, then the confessor now give the absolution.
Father, you've just said the Igbo version of the Act of Contrition. So can you help us with the English version for our audience?
Sure. The English version. Oh my God, because you are so good, I'm sincerely sorry that I've offended you, and by the help of your grace, I will not sin again. So this is just one version out of other versions. I mean English version. So according to a catechism text or the other, there could be version, or according to one bishop's conference or the other, So this is just one out of other versions.